DevOps cloud for infrastructure guys, someone who is working on a config management, someone who's working as an administrator. Then we'll look about infra and config management, EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, Beanstalk, which is a web application, Cloud Formation, which is automating the cloud, like you might have heard of Terraform, or how do I click a button and then my servers are built. We'll also talk about AWS config. Someone just before this class was asking about how do I automate these builds or how do I monitor? We'll talk about that as well. We'll also talk about DevOps for security professionals. We'll give a live demo on deploying an application on Beanstalk. Think of it as a web application you're deploying. How do you deploy using blue-green at deployment with zero downtime? And that's how companies are doing these days, implementing these things. We'll also talk about percentage-wise topics for DevOps certification, and I'll also tell you why you must do certification. We'll look at roughly 30 plus hands-on lab that you should be doing, and we recommend everyone to clear the AWS certification. We'll also talk about job opportunities and in order to get a higher paid job on AWS or DevOps on cloud. We'll take question answers and how you can take whatever you're learning today free to the next level with limited time fast action bonus. And we'll talk about that towards end. We'll also towards end, I'm going to cover Docker and Kubernetes, two of the most hot topics on AWS, which is EKS, ECS, Fargate, and ECR. We'll talk about those things. Now, first, before we go into all this, let's first look at why to learn AWS DevOps, why to learn DevOps, and why on AWS Cloud, the combination of these. So before I go forward, I always look back and see how the development and deployment has evolved over a period of time. If you look at from 80s and 90s, the development process used to be waterfall model. The application used to be monolithic, one big bulky application. You might have heard of mainframes. My servers used to be physical servers, where my servers, one big server, physical server on which I directly install operating system. My servers used to be in my customer data centers, we also called on-premise or customer-specific data centers. Then came in 2000s agile way of developing the applications. My application architecture used to be N-tier, which I have a database tier, I have an apps tier, I have a web tier, 3-tier normal architecture. My servers have gone from a physical server to virtual machines. VMware was a pioneer in bringing virtual machines to a household name or common name in IT. And servers used to be infrastructures on a hosted environment, which means in someone else's data center or maybe managed by someone else. And the current era in which we are living, we live in DevOps world. The microservices, applications have broken down one big bulky application onto microservices. You might have heard of Netflix. You might have heard of Uber or Ola if you're from India. Or if you have heard of other, like any application you can think, like Google, Gmail, or AWS or Amazon website, retail sites, they all run on microservices and managed by containers or run on containers. So these applications have gone to microservices, small applications running on containers, and these containers run on cloud. So this is where the era in which we're living, and that's why it's important to learn DevOps, microservices, containers, and cloud. And that is what we are going to look all at today. If you look at DevOps market is growing extensively, big time, and just alone in North America DevOps market size, if you look at it was in 2015 $1,200 million just alone in 2015, and if you look at in 20, it has almost gone double of what you are doing. It has almost gone double of what you in 20, and it's going to be in next 4 or 5 years or 4 years, it's going to be almost more than double of this. So 200% growth in DevOps revenue market. Now, similarly, the cloud as per Gartner has grown aggressively. If you see, it's in year on year growing aggressively. So the combination of DevOps on cloud is the perfect combination. So you both are at a growing very fast. And Amazon being the leader in cloud, if you see 33% market share is done by or is captured by AWS. And so that means it's bigger than the next 3 competitors combined together, Google or Microsoft or Alibaba combined together. So AWS is biggest, and that is reflected in jobs. So if you look at the job market, and last year or last year, 2019, 2020, AWS has a huge job opportunities available. And that's also reflected in DevOps job compared to others. DevOps jobs are growing aggressively year on year on year. So whether you're from US, there are hundreds and hundreds of job opportunities. If you just Google, this is a screenshot I've taken where I've said DevOps jobs or AWS DevOps jobs, and you see in US, whether you're from US or you're from Canada or you're from UK or from India. These I've taken, but it's not limited just to these countries. Maybe you're from Ireland or France or Italy or Germany or Netherlands or Middle East or Singapore, Australia, any country you see, you will see DevOps jobs. And especially nowadays, DevOps and cloud. So then people ask, hey, fine, there are jobs, but what are the salaries? And 140,000 is the average salary in US, starting from 110,000 to 180,000. These are from job portals. The average is 140,000. And it's not just US. If you see UK, starting from 57,000 to higher 82,000. I've seen much higher than that as well. But average, if you see 72,000, still very impressive salaries. And it's not just in India. If you see, you have salaries starting from 0 to 3 lakhs, which means salaries for freshers, to very high amount. So its salaries are good. Jobs are there. Plenty of jobs are there. And that is the reason I want you to start learning DevOps if you have not started. Some of you have already started. But there are jobs, there are higher paid jobs, but there's a problem. And problem is, especially after COVID, when companies put or circulate their job requirement, this is the kind of CVs they get. Hundreds and hundreds CVs for just one role. And employers confused, hey, should I pick one CV or another CV? I have to interview, but I can't interview all 100 guys. I only can call 30. How many out of 100, which one I will be picking? I just need to pick 30. So let's suppose I'll give you here, put in the comment window, you are hiring someone, you have 2 CVs. Will you be picking up left side or right side? Put in the chat window and tell me, will you pick left side or right? Type L for left and R for right. Which one will you pick, left or right? And yes, tell me reason why you're picking R as well. I've seen a lot of guys R. So which one you'll pick, please? Can you go on mute from my please? Tarushi, can you go on mute or can put someone mute? Okay, let me mute there, Tarushi. Thanks. So RR certified, absolutely. Sridhar is saying certified. Afan is saying certified. Yes, Aman is saying certified. Yes, R certification, absolutely spot on. Absolutely. And the certification is to help you to your CV being picked up on here because the right person has certification. And these are the certifications which are available. I'm going to focus about this AWS DevOps. And this is what we are going to focus today, which is AWS. I always go with keeping end in mind because this is where you will earn a lot of money. This is where you will have a lot of job opportunities. Now, again, a lot of guys say, hey, in order for me to do professional, do I have to do any of these? No, these are good to know, but not required. How you can directly learn AWS DevOps, that's what we're going to cover. These are not prerequisites. It's just like saying that different levels. If I'm in your place, if I want to hire a paid job, I'll do this. And when I'm doing this, I'll automatically learn all of these foundation and associate. So this is what we're going to focus today, AWS DevOps professional certification. And there are 7 topics on this here. 6 topics are there here. Software development lifecycle, configuration management on infrastructure as a code. How do you automate the cloud build, monitoring and logging, policies, automation, incident and event reporting, high availability, fault tolerance, and disaster recovery. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, this DevOps professional is anyone who basically works on IT, whether it's development or a developer or an operations guy or a tester or a security professional, anyone who implement version control or compliance, or infrastructure as a code or config management, build, release, testing. But again, you don't need to do all of them, even if you one part of that. So that's why I say DevOps touches pretty much everyone, whether you're an analyst for requirement gathering or a developer or a build guy or an infra guy, ops guy, management guy who's managing applications, who's building the servers, who's releasing the pipe, who's testing it. So DevOps is applicable pretty much for everyone. Everyone, some place or other will touch it. You don't need to do all of them, but some part of that. That's what is DevOps. And it's possible to get these certification. And this is just to inspire you, taken from a couple of our members. I'll talk about this members a little bit later, but these are some of the guys. So it's totally possible to get this certification, and get this certification how easily? I'm going to talk about that. So this is some of the screenshots of the guys. So it's totally possible. And I said, I can go on and on and on. But when I was looking at that, I got a couple of messages. Hey, yes, you're right. Certification, because right person was certification, but certification alone is not enough. I totally agree with that. That just alone doing certification will not cut it. Certification will help you to cut the first hurdle, which is that your CV being picked up. And then you have to have the knowledge. You need to understand what is DevOps. And then again, as I said, I'm going to bring our expert Aryan for that, but you need to understand DevOps very quickly. DevOps is nothing but where two teams, development and operations, work together as a collaboration, as a one single team is DevOps. Now, when you build any software, whether it's a commercially available off the shelf or any kind of a software, you need business analysts who can plan the requirement, who can talk to the business and plan it. Then you need developers who can code it. Once the developers have code, they store the code in some repository, and then build guy will come and build it using tools like Maven, or which AWS specific, we'll talk about that in a minute. So someone needs to build it. Then you need to come bring your testers, which probably might be testing it with the tools like Selenium or JUnit. Then your release guys will do the CI/CD, which will be they're deploying these on the servers. You need somewhere to deploy this. So you need virtual machines. You might need containers. You might need to deploy it on Kubernetes. You might deploy in web apps, which we're going to see today. Then you need someone who can operate all these like Chef, Ansible, Puppet, or Kubernetes. And then you need the guys who can monitor it. So this is all monitoring. So this is pretty much touching everyone on software lifecycle. If you look at DevOps tools, like you plan, you code, you build, you test, you release, you deploy, you operate. What are these? I think I'm going to bring Aryan, will touch base, but on a very high level, AWS has the tools on pretty much every artifact you're seeing here. So you see, Git is a code repository where you store your code. Similar to that, in AWS, you have AWS code commit. I'll cover that in a minute. You have automatic CI/CD pipeline like Jenkins. You have in AWS code pipeline. Your application deployment, where do you deploy applications? You have Elastic Beanstalk. How do you deploy the code? You have code deploy. You might have heard of serverless or functions, and that is where AWS Lambda. CloudTrail, X-Ray monitoring management. AWS Ops work automating the cloud build. CloudFormation, again automating the cloud build. This is Ops work using your Chef and Puppet, other things. AWS Config for config management. CloudWatch for monitoring. So these are all DevOps tools available. You have to have the knowledge of these. If you look at code, like we are doing source, my software code will go into code repository. I'm building or testing it. For testers will test it. My build team will build it using code build. And then deployment team will deploy it using code deploy. This whole process of automating this whole process of code commit, code build, and code deploy will come under code pipeline. Then someone needs to build the servers. So that is where my ops guy or admin guys will come, and they're going to build these servers using ops work or CloudFormation, or I have Elastic Beanstalk. This is a automatic deployment. We are going to see that today, this. And then you probably might be watching and monitoring using CloudWatch or X-Ray. So this is end-to-end DevOps on AWS, and this is where you will be doing. So again, very high level quickly, code commit is when developers develop, they store their code centrally somewhere. You might have heard of Git. And similar to that, code commit is to manage the source control on AWS cloud. Build, so someone will then go and build. You might have heard of build like Maven or Ant. Those code developed by developer will be built so that it can be deployed on a server. So you might have heard of EAR file, Enterprise Archive, Web Archive, WAR file, or maybe images if you're deploying on containers, or .NET artifacts. So all these you build them using code build. Then you deploy it, and you can deploy on any software like EC2, which is nothing but your virtual machines, Linux or Windows machines, or AWS Fargate, which is serverless. We have to cover that towards later end of this Fargate. Lambda, which is serverless, or you can even deploy it on your on-premise. Code deploy can do it all this. And then code pipeline, I automate all this right from source to build, to test, to stage, and then on deploy in production. Whole thing, how can I automate this? That's what code pipeline will do for me. So you need to know about this. Now, Infra, those guys from infra, let me know how many guys are from infra guys and say, yes, I'm infra guys. Put in the chat window and say, I'm infra or ops guy or admin guy. How many admin guys as well? I'm going to pick up questions as well. Um, um, so someone is asking, Shubham is saying, how much computer network is required for that? Networking knowledge is not required, but we're going to give you the networking knowledge, Shubham. Networking, oh, there is a lot of ops guys. Naveen, Vinod, Obi, Bonnie, a lot of guys are say perfect. So infra, you're going to build, like you have different tools for infra management. So you might have heard of Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Terraform, Vagrant, Packer. So all these infra external sources, similar to that in Kubernetes, you have, sorry, in AWS, you have CloudFormation. It will automatically by commands, just by write a piece of simple code or from a GUI, you say, I want to build 3 servers. It will be using an existing template and you can build entire setup within minutes. So that's CloudFormation. Cloud Trail is for your monitoring and tracking and reviewing your, especially your APIs. There's a lot of work on application programming interface. You might have heard of APIs. So the tracking of those, or CloudWatch for monitoring your all the servers and then notifying users or sending messages so you can track the like your services are up, your billing is all intact, or you're not being charged higher. So you can all these through CloudWatch. And then if you're finding security, rugged DevOps, which is a security where you can bring your security requirements or security checks much before early in the development phase, on more on left hand side or early stage of development. So rugged security or DevOps Sec, we call DevSecOps, which is where development and operations with security coming together, DevSecOps. So that, and then high availability architecture. I'm going to discuss about that later once Arun explains, but making sure that you have highly available servers, databases, where you have, this is diagram, left hand side you see, where you have different zones or data centers, your database, primary database and standby database, and then your applications, active, but primary side sending it to this database and forwarding DR here. And then you have your web servers with a load balancer in front. So your web servers, application server, databases front-ended by the load balancer. So this is a highly available architecture. So this is just to do a recap, this is all you need to know. So of course you need to have the certification, but certification alone will not be enough. You have to have the DevOps knowledge, all these phases. Then tools on AWS tools like Code Commit, Code Build, Code Deploy, Code Pipeline, config management, and then CloudFormation, Cloud Trail, CloudWatch, Security Professional, high availability, and disaster recovery. And trust me, it's simple, it's easy. And what for that, we have built a step-by-step framework where you go from a complete beginner. This is by teaching and training thousands and thousands of individuals like you. We have done a framework, which is you start with cloud and DevOps basics, very basics overview of cloud concepts and DevOps concepts. And then you go into SDLC, software development lifecycle. For everyone who is in IT should be knowing these basics principle. Again, you are not developing any code. You're not a developer. You are not writing any code or programming, but the principle, how it's being done on a high level, you understand software development lifecycle. Then configure management and automation. Monitoring and logging. How do you monitor and log with different tools available? How do you configure policies and automations on organizational structures, security, SSL, TLS? How do you do all of that? Then incident management, event response. This is very important for the day-to-day operations of your infrastructure running. High availability, disaster recovery, fault tolerance, having site reliability engineer to make sure that my site is always available. And then once you have learned all this, then you do a project work and customer case study and put all this together, and then you prepare for exam with some sample questions, prepare your CV. This is the framework for success. This is the framework for mantra. So this is all a 12-week framework which you put down. We have put down a step-by-step training program. I'm going to talk about this training program a little bit towards end. It's a program which is a paid program. If you like today's what we are going to teach, we are going to give you a lot of valuable information. We'll give you demo and make you comfortable. You will learn, but whatever you're learning, if you have to take it to the next level and learn all this quickly, effectively, so that you can earn more, I would invite you towards end for this program, which is AWS Certified DevOps Professional Certification Program, which is a comprehensive step-by-step program with 8 modules, 60+ lessons, 30 plus hands-on lab. And so these hands-on labs are very important. You're going to do them actually on AWS Cloud as you do in real world. And then you prepare your CV. We help you with the CV preparation, exam preparation. And then for exams, we give you sample questions to prepare hundreds of questions plus on exam and interview questions. And once you get a job, we give you 1 year on-job support. If you're interested, let my team know. I'm going to open this program, but this is a comprehensive 30 plus hands-on lab. And I'll open up this program towards end. But today we are going to pick one of the lab, which is AWS code, how to deploy the application on AWS Cloud, a web application using blue-green deployment model. Now, in the program, you will also have these modules, but lessons, videos, but also the exam quiz, like to see what to expect in the exam, so you can prepare for these exams, so these quizzes as well. Now, with that, we also give case study and project work, but it's only for limited time on first come, first serve basis. So how do you end-to-end project work so that you can show it in your job? And we have found it very handy. So when you're implementing or when you're going for a customer an interview, you can say, this is the project work you have done, and this is a case study, which is end-to-end deployment, and we're going to see we'll make a couple of projects for you. Also, for limited time, CV review and interview questions, you'll be seeing that as well. Now, as I said, getting paid, higher paid job, it's possible. It's totally possible. This is some of the guys which I'm going to I'll bring it again later. But Vinay, and these are the guys who have gone through our trainings in past and have, this is specifically for jobs. I've cracked 2 companies interviews. Thanks for the powerful coaching. Another one here, Raj Lakshmi, will bring that in spite of having 2 years of gap for a daughter's birth, she was able to get a job. Another one here is Tolu. Just wanted to let you know that I've got 2 offers today based on my AWS certification. So all these, what I'm going to talk today here is the one actually works. The program which I'm going to bring later actually works, not only just to clear certification, but also getting a higher paid job as well. This is again more, I'll talk about them a little bit later. I'm running short on time, so I'll cover that. Now, also those who stay till end, take action. It's only for first 50 guys, as I said, free gift, limit time, or not even 50 guys. While we are in this session, only for those who decide to join the program, it's only for them on who stay till end. I was talking about that microservices containers. So Docker and Kubernetes are quite hot in the market. And if you've heard Kubernetes, if not heard, I'm going to cover that today. So Docker and Kubernetes is quite hot. Now, AWS has a lot of implementation of Docker and Kubernetes on cloud, and that's where you will see Kubernetes jobs. Now, so at the start, I said there are 100, 150 plus or 200,000 up to $200,000. Or if you're talking about UK, probably around 100,000 pounds plus, or in India, probably 40, 50 lakhs plus. This is where you have a little bit more advanced knowledge, which is Kubernetes and Docker on AWS job opportunities. So there are 3 implementations of Docker and Kubernetes on AWS: ECS, EKS, Fargate. That is, what are these? What are the pros and cons of each? Which one you need to pick? The architecture of Kubernetes normal. This is what you see on left hand side is the Kubernetes architecture and its implementation on AWS Cloud. I'm going to cover that towards end. How do you do end-to-end EKS workflow? So that we have a separate program which is worth $497. I don't want you to buy that. You're going to get it free for those who take action, but it's towards and Docker and Kubernetes on AWS, where we cover ECR, Elastic Container Registry, ECS, Elastic Container Services, EKS, which is Kubernetes Service, and Fargate. And we have extensive hands-on lab for this as well for deploying. I'm going to talk all this towards end, and we'll also give you the architecture explanation today free. You're going to learn this Kubernetes architecture as well as the deployment of Kubernetes architecture, so that you can feel comfortable in terms of, or you will learn here a lot. This is what we're going to cover in look towards end. So there are extensive 13 hands-on lab on this program. You're going to get that's absolutely free. Now, none of these what we talk is just theory or just practical. We believe in result, and these are some of the guys who have gone through. Another one, Gargi, DevOps engineer. She works as DevOps, DevSecOps, and CK. A lot of the success stories. I'll bring them towards end. Not only these, as I said, we have lots and lots of success stories. I can go on and on and on, and I don't want to take a lot of time, and that's why I'll move on. Apart from individuals, we also help corporate customers like these. We've helped a lot of corporate customers across the globe. So, and we run short, small workshops like these. If any one of you are interested, let my team know. For your team, we can do it remotely over the conference, or we can go in person or come in person and give these sessions for you. Now, with that, enough about that. I hope you understand the importance of DevOps. I hope you understand why it's important for you to learn DevOps, especially on cloud and AWS cloud. So this is what we're going to cover. Very high level. Show is the actual live demo, which is a blue-green deployment where we're doing apps. We are going to give web apps, but we'll talk about Beanstalk is nothing but Aaron is going to talk about that Beanstalk in a minute. But this is the live demo we are going to do, and we'll give a brief idea about, keep it high level about some of these services. But if you need anything more, let us know and keep asking questions in the chat window. Now, just to quick introduction about me. My name is Atul. I'm an author. I've written a couple of books. I'm a cloud architect, helped a lot of customers on cloud. But the most important part is I've helped 5,700 plus, 5,500 plus individuals like you to learn cloud. So my intentions are for you to learn, move on onto the cloud and AWS world or DevOps world. So learn all these things. The main show is hero is Aryan. He's an expert in this domain. He's been doing and working on AWS since 2013. You name a certification in AWS, pretty much he has most of these certifications. He also not only teaches but also implement these solutions on for customers. He's also a trainer and worked with a lot of our AWS training. So this is what I'm going to bring him here in a minute. Now, before I go further and hand it over to Aryan, I want to know a little bit more about what your background is, and so that if you are beginner in DevOps, type B. Or AWS Cloud, type B. If you are working on DevOps or DevOps implementation on cloud, type I. And if you are certified already, AWS DevOps certified, type E, so that we can go accordingly. We can go a little bit more deeper. We keep it high level so that we don't overwhelm you. So we can balance it like that. So type B, I, or E, and so that I can answer. So let me know in the chat window and how many questions, how many are getting. Okay, so there are a lot of B's. Okay, fine. But I'm going to hand it over to Aryan. But let's make this session interactive. I'm going to answer as many questions as we can. Focus and ask. So make sure you focus and ask questions. Aryan, I'm going to hand it over to you, please. Over to you. And I see a lot of questions. Let me 1 second. Let me hand it over to Aryan. Over to you. Guys, there are a lot of questions. Aryan, sorry, feedback are B. DevOps B, AWS I. Sandeep is saying B, a lot of beginners. Same thing, DevOps beginner and AWS I. Good. There's one person who's written D. I don't know why. Okay, maybe. So, Aryan, if you can keep it high level, that would be wonderful, please. Yeah, there's a lot of B beginners. Wow. A lot of Bs. Aryan, over to you.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Hey, hi. Hope my voice is clear, loud and clear, and you can see my screen clearly.
Yes. One thing I always say, me also, including me, I speak very fast. So if you see I'm speaking very fast because I'm very passionate about these things and I go very fast. So stop me and say slow down. Similarly, Aryan sometimes speaks very fast. We are not going to go and on a particular slide. We'll keep it high level. But if we think we're speaking fast, let us know so that we can slow down. But Aryan, I want to keep it high level so that people can understand and we can give a lot of value, because I want to keep a lot of time for question answers, because I see a lot of question answers. Over to you, Aryan.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Atul, for explaining why they need to do DevOps and why they need to do DevOps on AWS. I think now what I'm going to do is also thanks for giving my introduction. So as you all know, I'm an AWS expert working as a solution architect and a DevOps professional in my organization. So I've been directly working with the client in both migrating the applications from the on-premises to the AWS. At the same time, I also work with our clients for developing the new application from the AWS from the scratch. Now, when you're planning to develop an application in AWS, that is where your DevOps come into picture. So how do you do it on DevOps is what you're going to learn with respect to this particular course. So since Atul has already covered my introduction, I'm not going to go in detail about it. And as you can see, these are my certifications, what I've done. And as you can see, why DevOps? So as Atul rightly said, that previously there was a different organization altogether, wherein there was a development team where they had their own issues, and there was a operation team where they had their own issue, due to which the end user was in a great confusion, and due to which the clients or the, let me change my pen color, guys. Okay, so due to which the clients were not so happy that the whatever the result they wanted was not being implemented on time, and most of the clients were suffering from it, and most of the end users were suffering from it. Now what was the solution came for it? The solution what it came was the DevOps, wherein they combined the development team and the operation team together, and they made it DevOps. Now as you can see, by achieving a DevOps, you would acquire efficiency in your organization, when it will be easier and faster to get your running application to market. When we are talking about a CI/CD pipeline, which says continuous integration and continuous delivery, or sometimes it is also called continuous deployment. Now when you do a continuous deployment or a continuous delivery, what happens, whatever the changes or whatever the application you are building from the scratch as a developer, it will be continuously deployed into the production server, and the end user can experience it immediately. And the next advantage is that by using DevOps, you can get predictability. So wherein you can predict the failures what you're going to test, because what happens before you putting the application to the production, so you do a lot of testing which has been done in the backend before going to the production environment, so that there will be a low failure rate at new releases. And it also gives you a reproducibility. So reproducibility simply means that at any point of time, if something goes wrong in your production, it is easy for you to switch to any version anytime you want. So all the versions of your code, all the versions of your build artifacts, and the deployable code, all the versions will be stored safe and secure in the DevOps pipeline, or rightly said CI/CD pipeline. And you can point out to any of the particular version and get back your application live without any delay or without any downtime. And the other advantage what we would get is the maintainability, where it will be easy for you to recover in the event of new release crashing. Now it's been I mean, several years back, you guys must have experienced already. I see a lot of heterogeneous crowd who's have a different level of experience. You guys must have experienced that when you're doing a new release stage, or if you're adding a new feature to your application, there are a lot of scenarios where your application is going to get crashed, and due to which you're going to face a lot of production issues, a lot of development issues. So due to which again you'll have to reiterate all your work from the beginning. But here, when you use a DevOps, or when you use a CI/CD pipeline, it will help you to recover from such kind of events immediately, and avoid you from disabling the current system. So you see, several years back, it used to happen that the sites, the web applications or certain applications used to be gone down for some period of time, wherein there was a downtime. But nowadays you see that none of the application goes down. It doesn't mean that it is not there are no errors happening in the backend. There are errors happening in the backend. There are a lot of crashing happening in the backend, but they have been maintained by the DevOps team, so that the end user will not face any issues. Now, with respect to DevOps, what is a DevOps? It's a practice that combines software development and IT operations. A simple layman explanation: software development and an IT operation combined together is called DevOps. In DevOps, you see all these phases comes into picture, which already Atul explained. So that is planning, creating, verifying, packaging it, releasing it, configuring it, and also after deploying, you'll also have to monitor. Now all this has to be taken care by a one single DevOps team, and for that, in all over the world, in all over the IT market, you have several tools. As you can see, these are the tools which is provided by different vendors. You have Docker, you have Chef, you have Ansible, you have Jenkins. Some of them are open source, some of them are enterprises. You have GitHub, you have Bitbucket, Jira. So there are several vendors which offers you their applications or their softwares in each of the stages. As you can see, for every stage you have a certain up to three or four options. Each of the app softwares you can use as per your requirement. Now choosing among these different vendors, because they have been produced by different vendors, and working with it and integrating them is kind of a time consuming and a laborious task, wherein unnecessary integration time and developing time will be involved. Now when you come to AWS, AWS leaves you no gap, wherein AWS is gonna give you the tools which is provided by AWS for all the development phase, or I would say CI/CD phase. Starting from planning until to deploy and operate, you have the AWS tools over here, which is provided by the AWS. So you also see certain open source tools like Jenkins, Chef, Terraform, Git. It simply means that AWS is flexible enough. If your company has a rigidity that you want to integrate with any of this, you can also do so. You can also use an AWS service to successfully set up your complete CI/CD pipeline, starting from building to a deployment, or in or if you want to incorporate any of the integration. Let's say I want to integrate Jenkins to my AWS CI/CD pipeline, or I want to integrate Terraform, or I want to integrate Git. Even that is possible. So AWS gives you a complete flexibility to set up your CI/CD pipeline and successfully deploy your application, and also maintain your application and avoid any crashes. Now, with respect to the continuous delivery, you see a lot of services here, uh, mainly dealing with the configuration management, deployment, and monitoring. So I'm going to briefly go through a few of the services, which is Atul already covered, but I'm going to briefly go through them again.
Before we go, there are a lot of questions coming. Let me pick. Can you go back to the previous slide? So there are a lot of questions coming. First of all, Ashish is saying, do I need to be a AWS solution architect before doing this? Answer is no. As I said earlier, you can directly go for the AWS DevOps professional, and that's what a lot of guys have done. If you stay till end, if you are complete new to the DevOps, we probably might be giving you some additional bonuses, which I'll talk about later. So keep an eye, interesting thing which will be coming for you. Another one is, I forgot the name. I'm from a QA background. Do I need to have any development and coding language knowledge? No, this is not a development course. This is a DevOps. You don't do any coding. You don't need any programming. And whether you're from a developer background or from a QA background, administration background, ops background, or you're doing from a DBA, anything that you're doing, that will all be able to do the DevOps. And that's what you should be doing that. One question Mohammed is saying, what is the difference between EC2 and Fargate, considering them both are being virtual servers? Mohammed, stay till end. I'm going to talk in detail about EC2, Fargate, ECS, and EKS, all four of them. Shamio again is saying, do we need a programming language? Answer is no, Shamio. Okay. Okay, there's how much coding is required? Hiren is saying there is no coding required. We are not doing any coding. I'm a fresher. Can I let me know some basic knowledge for same? Yes, absolutely. We are going to cover that. Suraj again, is coding required? No, there's no coding required. There are a lot of questions about coding. Someone is asking about price. Altamis, we stay till end. I'm going to talk about the price for the program as well. Let's move on. There's a lot of questions are coming. I'll pick up all the questions, answering them behind the scene. Over to you, Arun. And we need to, as I said, we need to cover demo as well. So you explain that, and over to you. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So coming to our when you plan to set up a CI/CD pipeline on AWS, this is how it looks like on an overall site, wherein from your local machine you're gonna commit your code or the application whatever you have, and then your code commit is gonna pick up from that, and it is gonna move it to the build, and again it is gonna go and deploy. Now all these three aspects will be taken care by a code pipeline service, which will make sure that everything will flow intact. And this code deploy is going to deploy into different environments. It might be a QA environment, it can be a staging environment, it can be a production environment. In case if you want to do a continuous delivery, you can directly deploy into production environment as well, wherein you will have all the flexibility to as per your organization requirement. Now, one of the famous deployment model is called a blue-green deployment. So there are several deployment models. To name a few, there is something called canary deployment. There is something called A and B deployment. There is something called blue-green deployment. Out of this, blue-green deployment is pretty famous. And here it simply means that you will have a web application with a 3-tier, let's say a web tier, application tier, and a database tier, which is already running in production. Now you want to add a new feature to it, or a new changes to it. Now, if you want to add a new changes to it, and if you want to bring it back to the production, so the release management is a very difficult task when you do it in on premises, or if you do it in anywhere outside AWS. But in AWS, it can be done so easily. We're going to do a demo on that, wherein you can just configure the router to point out to a different environment which is having a latest changes. I'm going to show you a clear demo on this, on the blue-green deployment and how it works with using Elastic Beanstalk. So after I cover a few topics. So typically, when you talk about a blue-green deployment, what will happen in the backend if you're using a DevOps or a CI/CD pipeline? Whenever you have a particular CI/CD pipeline with a code commit, code build, and code deploy, your deploy is gonna have a starting. It will be in the blue environment. When you say blue environment, it will have all the infrastructure needed to run your application. That is your virtual servers, or that is your load balancer and auto scaling. It will require all the services, and on top of which your application will be running. Now, when I want to add a new feature, what I'm going to do, I'm going to deploy my new feature into the different environment that is called a green environment. And then once a deployment is successful, so until this deployment process is happening, right, I'm deploying into a blue and green environment. Until this, my production will be connected to a blue environment, and my production will be running successfully, so that the end users will not face any issue. After I deploy successfully with the new features in the green environment, what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch the traffic in the router to point to the green environment. So I'm going to show you that demo. How do we do it? It's pretty easy, so that the end users will not face any problem or any glitches or any latency from their side that you have done some release changes in the production environment. So that is the advantage of blue-green deployment. Without bringing down your production server or any server, without bringing them down, you can do that deployment and you can add the new features whenever you want. So all this infrastructure, what I spoke about, your virtual machine and your load balancer, your auto scaling, which is required to run an application in AWS, can be managed automatically by a service called Elastic Beanstalk. So Elastic Beanstalk is a service model which comes under platform as a service. So which says platform as a service, wherein it will give you a complete platform to run your web application. Now currently AWS is supporting for a web application, so it is going to provide you all the platform required to run your web application. So here, what is your job? You just need to choose the programming language in which you are going to deploy your application. So AWS is flexible enough to support all the major programming languages. You can choose any of these, like Java, .NET, PHP, Node.js, Python, Ruby, Golang, or Docker. You can choose the programming language and tell the Elastic Beanstalk that this is the programming language I've written the code on. So it is going to set a particular infrastructure and the operating system for you, and also a platform required to run your application automatically. So that is why it is called a platform as a service, wherein the entire platform will be given by AWS. What is your job? You just need to write a code and deploy into it. So that is where your Elastic Beanstalk comes into picture. And using this Elastic Beanstalk is where what we're going to do a demo on the blue-green deployment. Now, as you can see, all this infrastructure, as I told you, when you're running an application, you have a load balancer, you have an application server, you have a web server. All this infrastructure will be taken care by a one individual service that is called Elastic Beanstalk. So with the platform, with the operating system installed, which is required to run my application. Now, to run an application, you need an hardware, you need a software, you need an operating system, you need a platform on top of it. All this is taken care by Elastic Beanstalk, which is a platform as a service. As you can see, EC2, load balancer, auto scaling, CloudWatch, storage, everything is given by the Elastic Beanstalk, and you just deploy your application code to the Elastic Beanstalk. That is all your job is. You just need to write a code and deploy into Elastic Beanstalk. You choose a platform, tell Elastic Beanstalk that I've written a code in Node.js, I want to deploy, and it is going to create all the environment whichever is required for you, and you can run your application. So Elastic Beanstalk is the fastest way of deploying your application in the entire world, also in AWS and also in the entire world. Using the AWS Elastic Beanstalk, it is the fastest way you can bring your application to the live to entire world. Now coming to the infrastructure and configuration management.
Sorry, if you don't mind, can you go back to the previous one? It was brilliant. In fact, I will cover one thing. And so as guys, as Aryan mentioned, when you deploy the cloud can be deployed in 3 deployment models. There's an infrastructure as a service, IaaS we call, platform as a service, PaaS, PaaS, and then software as a service SaaS, software as a service SaaS. Now, some of you guys already know, but this, as Aaron mentioned, if you're deploying these things manually, individually, that will come as a infrastructure as service IaaS, AWS. If you're deploying as a Elastic Beanstalk, Beanstalk is going to do everything for you. That will count as a platform as a service. Now, inside the program, there was a question on that, and I thought that's why I bring it. Pooja was saying, is this program for beginners? I'm a non-IT and I want to know from scratch. Answer is yes, absolutely. So when we start the program or the main program, which I said at the start, I'm going to open it up at the end, we are going to give you all these basic concepts in advance for you, and we're going to teach you those concepts as well so that you understand these things. Also, we break down into all these services individually so that you learn from scratch. So the program is done keeping beginners in mind who has no IT knowledge, so that we can give you some bonus classes to bring you into these basic concepts about what is, I'm talking about elastic load balancer, what is the load balancer does, or what is compute does, what are the different type of compute, storage, networking, what is platform as a service, infrastructure service, and then we also give you the DevOps basics, which I'll cover. So Pooja, stay till, and I'm only saying who works on Jenkins. Anyone who is working on CI/CD works on Jenkins. We are, again, I'm going to bring a couple of times this program, so guys don't feel intimidated. But this is to educate everyone, saying that why when I said it's a comprehensive step-by-step program, why I'm saying comprehensive, because we are going to give you Jenkins as well, because we see a couple of jobs about Jenkins. So you're going to learn how to integrate Jenkins with AWS as well. That's one. Another one, Christian is saying, I'm interested, but I've only started AWS Solution Architect a few days ago. So Christian, if you started AWS Solution Architect, which is good, we are going to make something interesting offer towards end. So stay till end, and you can still join, but you can say, I want to start maybe 3 months later. I want to start next year. We can block it time, and you start your one. We provide one. Okay, I'll hold that question, hold the thought in a minute, but we'll have something interesting for you if you can't start. Guys, remind me again, Christian's question again. But you can make these bonuses, which I'm going to talk about. Hiren is saying, I'm a data data scientist, and is it useful for me? Answer is yes, absolutely. Anyone who's working on IT, whether you're working on Kubernetes, you're a data scientist, machine learning, anything, or ETL, anything that needs IT will involve DevOps, because when you're deploying the data science, you're probably writing machine learning algorithms. Algorithms will go, you make changes. So anywhere there is a deployment, there is a change, there is a code running, or servers are running, DevOps is applicable for you here, and so it's applicable absolutely. Gaurav is saying, would there be only 50 students? Yes, we allow only the 50 new students. We always have an unlimited retake of the previous batch students. So there might be some old students, but we limit 50 students. That's why we limit. Otherwise, we could have done in unlimited. So that's why, yes, you're right, Gaurav. There's a lot of questions are coming. I don't know to hold up. Aryan, over to you, please. There's a lot of questions about program fee. Sridhar, we'll cover that later. How relevant is the course for Gaurav is saying for the one who has no programming, no knowledge of DevOps. Gaurav, if you have no knowledge of DevOps, we are going to give you DevOps beginners straight till and please. Over to you, Arun.
Yeah. So with respect to the infrastructure and configuration management, again, there are several vendors which is giving a lot of softwares like Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Terraform in the IT market. And again, the same problem, integrating them and managing them with the different vendors is again a laborious task. When you come to AWS, you can have an infrastructure as a code service that is called AWS Cloud Formation. What does this service do? So basically, you just need to write a code for your infrastructure. When I say an infrastructure, it requires your application server, your web server, your database, your networking, your storage, everything. I want to set them through the code. If you want to set up your infrastructure through a code, CloudFormation is a service which is an AWS native service, which is called AWS CloudFormation, which is basically written on a code called JSON and YAML, and using which you're going to write your templates and deploy it, and AWS is going to spin up your infrastructure. So even that is also part of your DevOps, wherein understanding of that is very important. Coming to the monitoring and logging. So as you know that any application running in any environment, be it a staging, dev, or production, monitoring is very important. And when you talk about an enterprises which are having thousands of servers running, or thousands of applications running, so manual monitoring is of course is not feasible. So we have a dedicated service in AWS to do the monitoring. First monitoring service is AWS CloudTrail. What it does, it will record all the API activity happening in your AWS account. No matter who is accessing it, no matter which user is accessing it, what changes he's making, all the activities will be stored in the CloudTrail, and you can refer to it, and you can also use it for troubleshooting. And the next service what we have is okay. So this diagram shows typically that the access from different ways. You can access your AWS account through console, SDK, and CLI. Whatever the way you access your AWS account, all these things will be captured in the AWS CloudTrail. The next service what we have is AWS CloudWatch. So CloudWatch is again, it's a monitoring service wherein it will help you to understand the performance of your resources in AWS, how well your application is performing. Are you overutilizing anything, or are you underutilizing anything? All these things can be monitored using CloudWatch, and you can take an action, and you can also set up an evolutionary architecture, that you can set up an architecture and do the monitoring. If it is not working as required, and then you improve your architecture. That is called an evolutionary architecture, and that evolutionary architecture can be achieved by AWS CloudWatch. It also has a feature of notification. It is going to drop an email or send a mobile message accordingly, and it can also have a feature to take an action on behalf of you. So here, using a CloudWatch, you can also eliminate the manual actions. So that's about CloudWatch. Now, when you talk about a complete picture, this is how it looks like. So I'll just briefly go through it. Whenever you deploy your code, it'll go through the code commit, and CloudWatch is going to monitor all the activities. And in the code pipeline, you will have a build happening. So based on the testing, whatever the testing you are done, if it is triggering a build, it can do a AWS code build, and it can store the artifacts in the S3 bucket. So that is a storage device in AWS. And if everything is going, when testing is done, you can trigger a deploy. So it is going to deploy into a dev environment. And again, the further testing is done. So several tests has been done, like in the each of the stages. And when the further testing is done, then you're going to deploy into prod, and you can directly do the deployment to the production environment. So this is your production environment. This is your dev environment. As you can see, there are two different square boxes. It means that there are two different environments where there is no interrelation between them. This is how your overall architecture looks like. Achieving this architecture in AWS requires a knowledge on different AWS services. That is what we're going to cover. And with respect to the today's demo, so as I told you, we're going to do a demo on the.
Sorry, before I go for demo, is it all guys flowing up? Just let me know. All. I hope that makes sense. Aryan is going to give you the demo or explain you, but is it all going fine? Are you? I hope yes. I'm getting a lot of questions as well. I'm going to get yes. Saran is saying yes. Good, great. So far, brilliant. Yes, if you could just give a high level overview about what we are going to give in a demo. This is just one part of the one lab. We have 30 plus such labs. It's a small part within one of the labs. So that's what we're going to cover in that demo. Over to you, Aaron. Going brilliant. Over to you.
Yeah. So in this particular demo, what we're going to do, I'll just simply explain you. So we have already an environment or a web application running. That is what we call as a blue environment. So the current environment what we have is a blue environment wherein our application is already running. And there is a website which is already running, a simple sample web application which is already running. Now we made a changes to my web application, and I want to immediately deploy it, and I want to immediately switch it to the new environment. So how do we do it is what we're gonna do a demo, and how simple it is to do it in a blue-green deployment without bringing our website down is what we're gonna see. So for that, let me log into my AWS management console in a while. Just a moment, guys. Hope everybody can see my management console screen, I guess. So here, this is how your AWS, for those of you who are new, this is how your AWS management console looks like. So here I'm gonna go for a service called Elastic Beanstalk. So it's here. I'll click on Elastic Beanstalk. So here, we have already an environment set that is called a blue environment. So wherein my application is already running. So this is how my application looks like. As you can see, this is how my application looks like. Okay. So this is the particular website what we are running. now what we're gonna do is we go back to our environment. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna run a green environment, and I'm gonna show you how to run a green environment. So this is gonna take some time, because as I told you, Elastic Beanstalk is gonna run all the infrastructure for us in the backend. So I'm gonna name this environment as green environment. And then my application code, as I told you, I'm going to choose a platform. I have written the application code in PHP. So I'm going to upload my code. What is the new code, which is the changes I have made. I'm going to upload that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on create an environment. Now you see it will take couple of minutes now, wherein it will gonna run the entire infrastructure for us in the backend. So what is this infrastructure? That is your virtual machine, that is your load balancer, auto scaling, and the monitoring tool required for my application, my web application to run successfully. So all these things is gonna run in the backend. So it is gonna take couple of minutes. You can also watch the screen. You can see the events happening. So the environment is starting. So we'll wait for some time until it runs. You see that the I'll just walk you through. You'll see that the load balancer getting created, and in every event the health will also be monitored, and even your entire environment health also will be monitored with the Elastic Beanstalk. You see that the auto scaling has been getting created. So this particular entire environment will be managed from the AWS side. So we do not have to worry about any infrastructure failure or any capacity shortage or any bottlenecks, because it has been done through auto scaling. So auto scaling is going to increase and decrease the capacity for us. And as you can see, even several networking the components are also getting created.
So Aryan, it's deploying the code. While we are deploying the code, can you explain in the slide as well? I think slide deck, so that it becomes clear to everyone while we are
Yeah.
deploying. If you go into the slide, I'll explain everyone while it's deploying. So if you can make the slide full screen onto the next page. So this is, I think Aryan already mentioned, if you go to the next one, we are going to send you the lab as well on how to do this lab. But if you go to the next one, if for those of you who don't have any account, you can create an account by going to URL. We'll tell that URL, do it later. We'll put it all this in an email to you over the next 1 or 2 or 3 days. So you can create an account. If you go to the next slide. Now, this is what one of the labs which you have taken a screenshot from the labs. This is how the PDF look like. And this is a more detailed lab you will get inside the program for you. But this is how you create these environments, which will explain you in a minute. If you go next one. Uh, so this is what exactly we are doing. So if you see the bottom one, you have an Elastic Beanstalk, which will have your application underlying EC servers on which your code is running. And code could be, as Aryan mentioned, it could be PHP, it could be Python, and he'll show you in a minute here that code when you're deploying. Or otherwise, I can show it to you, or I'll show it here. So the bottom one, you have the URL, or sorry, the top one is your blue environment, which is where your production code is running. And now you want to have a new version of the code. So you will create a similar environment, which is of green environment we'll call it, and the old blue environment will have the old code. New code will go to deploy on the green environment. And then once we are ready, we are simply going to switch the URL. And so my users, when they connect next time, they will be seeing this new updated one on the existing URL, the old URL itself, but the new code. If you go back to the next one, please. Yeah, so when I'm deploying, so when we're deploying the Elastic Beanstalk, if you see here, and I think probably we'll show it in a minute here as well, when you're deploying, you can select what kind of a platform on which your code runs. If it's a PHP code, you can you select PHP. If it's a Node.js code, you do Node.js, Java, Go, Glassfish, Docker, .NET, Ruby, Python, Tomcat, you name the underlying platform on which you want to run. AWS has that platform. So your developer will tell you then saying that, hey, here is my code, and you take this code and you deploy a PHP type application, or this is a PHP application. That's where you're going to go and select, and you create an environment of PHP type. This is what we have picked up here. Next one, please. And now if you see here, we have two environments. One is green, blue, bottom one. Bottom one is where my production code, and green one is where I have my the new updated on which I'm going to deploy the code or new code. So my blue environment, old code, green environment, new. My users are accessing via the blue environment. And when I'm ready, if you go to the next one, Arun, please. And this is what actually happening. And once I'm ready, and hopefully by the time the code have been deployed, old and new, we're able to swap the environment, and we simply go to the blue environment and say, I want to swap it. And you click on swap, and then it will tell you the next screen and say which one you want to swap it with. So you'll say, I want to swap it with the green environment, and click on swap button. And if you go next, and you will see that in the log in here under the events, you will see that swap is completed. Once swap is completed, the users will still see blue environment URL same, but with a new code. If you go to the next one, so you see this is how it will look like. It will say updated version, because that's what the file we have updated, the updated version over to you, and hopefully by now we should have this code ready.
Yeah, thank you, Atul, for explaining that. I think it is just spinning up.
It's still spinning up. That's why. Okay, let me pick it from here. And guys, I'm going to show it to you because it takes time. I already have that environment ready. That's why I was saying I already kept it one
Okay.
environment ready. So if you give me that,
I think even I have the environment, so I can show it also.
yeah,
So,
if you can, yeah, let's go. Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay. So as you can see, we have currently we are running with the blue environment and the green environment, which is two already created. Now, as you can see, okay, just a minute. So this is our blue environment, and if you click on this URL, you will get the blue environment. So you can access this URL wherein you're going to point to the blue URL, so the blue environment URL. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on action, and then I'm going to click on swap environment URLs, and then I say I want to swap with the green environment. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on swap. Now if you see here under the events, it has been starting, and it says complete swapping CNAME of the environment, blue environment and the green environment. I think the environment is not spin up, Atul, exactly. I think you can
no problem. That's why I'm saying give me control, and I already have that ready. I'm going to show it. But brilliant job, Aryan, and I'm going to get a feedback once I show it on my environment. Luckily, I had said technical glitches happen. Not to worry. It takes time. It'll take few more minutes on that. So if you give me control,
okay. I think it's spin up now. So just a moment. Let me repeat it again. Sorry for that. So I'm going to click on the swap environment URL now, and here if you click on the green environment, so we'll have to switch it from the green environment. So go to your environments, go to the blue environment, and then go to the action and click on swap environment URLs. Select the green environment and click on swap, and you see that it has been done. And then if I click on this particular website, I think the code is not uploaded here, Atul. I think you
don't worry, I have that. That's why I'm saying don't worry, Aryan. Don't worry, let me pick it from here, and I'm going to show it 1 second. No problems. Make myself presenter.
Yeah, I think
I'm the presenter now. Hold on 1 second. Make myself presenter. Hold on. Sorry. Yep. Show my screen. Brilliant. Can you see my screen, guys? So let me tell you here. And thanks, by the way, Aryan, for brilliant job. I know it takes time. That's why I said we'll have one environment ready, but it's totally okay. I'm going to show you. I have this environment ready. So this is my. If you see, I have this application. So you have an application. Application, in my case, we call it blue-green application. So I'm saying this application. In this application, I have two environments. Blue environment is where I have my code. And let me, if I have to create one more environment, how I'm going to do, I'll simply say create an environment. And I'll say whether it's a web server or worker. Forget about this right now. We simply want a web server environment, and you say select, and you give a name of the environment. It could be my red environment. For example, I create one more environment called red environment. Okay, I can create as many environments as I want. Domain name, it will automatically pick domain name automatically, which is a URL, red-environment.us east. And this is where do I want a managed platform? Yes, AWS is going to manage everything for me. And this is where I'm going to select what application or what platform I'm going to run. Is it Java, .NET, PHP, something? So in this case, my application given by my developer is PHP. I could use Node.js, whatever application my developer have given. And then what version of PHP I'm running? What is my platform? This. And this is where I'm saying which code, where exactly my application code is. So I will say my upload, my code, and my code is already, for example, it's stored in zip file, or I have the code, I can give it from local file system. I can use my S3 bucket, which is nothing but storage, or I can take it from any Git repository, or so I can select any of this and I'll say create an environment. Now this environment is already